this is one of the best games ever made. It's ranked 17th overall on Board Game Geek, and it plays 2 to 4 players and takes about 30 to 90 minutes to play, and it's no surprise that this one is our pick of the week. But don't look at this page because the new version is going to be much more impressive with brand new artwork, deluxified components, and every expansion included. And if you're not familiar with this game, it's a Euro-style game where each player is going to have their own individual player board, and in the center there's going to be some different hex locations where players will be placing different hexes throughout the game, but you're going to have to start adjacent to your starting castle, which goes in the middle of the board, and then expand from there. There's also some different areas on your board to store the tiles you haven't placed yet, your different goods that you've collected, as well as your coins and your dice as well, because each player is going to be getting their own set of dice. And the game plays over 5 phases, with each phase having 5 rounds. And I know this board doesn't look too impressive compared to the other artwork provided on this page, but a lot of the art in this campaign is still concept work, and they haven't quite finalized the way that the board looks, so expect these images to update as the campaign goes on. But at the start of each round, there's going to be 5 good tiles that are put randomly off to the side of the board, and then each player is going to be rolling their dice, with the player who is currently the first player also rolling a white die. And the only purpose of that white die is to determine where one of those 5 goods tiles will go out onto the board. Players are also going to randomly draw tiles and put them out on each individual space, and that's all you do at the start of the round. And then we're going to move into the next phase where players will be able to spend their dice in order to perform different actions, and the value of the dice that you rolled is going to dictate what sort of options you have depending on the action that you choose. And the different actions players can choose are to trade one of their dice in order to gain some worker tokens, and the worker tokens allow you to modify the value of your dice, either increasing it or decreasing that value by 1. Or alternatively, players can spend 2 of their silver in order to buy whatever tile they want, or they can sell any goods that they have in their warehouse on their board to gain a silver as well as victory points depending on how many of those goods you've sold. Or instead you can gain a hex from one of the locations that matches the value of your die. And then finally, the most interesting one is to use your die in order to place one of those tiles. And this is where the main puzzle of the game comes into play, because at the start of the game, each player is going to be putting a board into their main player board, and this board is going to have limitations on what color of tile you can put there, and then also which value of die you need in order to place that tile in that space. So if you have a tile that matches the color of a space on that board, and you have a die available to spend as an action that matches the value there, and also that space is adjacent to another tile that you've already put on the board, then you do have the option to place that tile. But the fun doesn't stop there, because the color of the tile that you placed also allows for the special action that's associated with that color. And these different actions might allow you to gain additional goods, move ahead in the player order, or gain victory points, which can stack depending on which other tiles you already have in your board. And there's also special action tiles that have unique abilities that players will also be competing for. And then after the players have completed their 2 actions from their 2 dice, they're going to be re-rolling those dice again, with the lead player rolling that white die, determining where the next goods tile is going to go, and then the rounds continue like that until the end of the game, and the player with the most victory points wins the game. And when I first heard about this campaign, I was pretty quick to roll my eyes, because I wasn't too happy with some of the previous Awakened Realms campaigns, because I think they do have a tendency to overload their games with too much junk and plastic and components that just don't really add too much value or have any reason to be in the game. And a lot of times I think it even detracts from the value, because it just makes the box bigger than it needs to be, makes it heavier and more expensive to ship, and tends to make the game more fiddly just for the sake of having some pretty miniatures or extra plastic that didn't need to be there to begin with, or just doesn't even function as good as the original components. And when I first saw the size of this box, and then also realized that there's multiple boxes in this campaign, it did give me some reasons for concern, but after looking more and more into it, I'm not too upset with the changes that I'm seeing, because most of them do add gameplay value. And I'll just go through that whole list of changes and let you know what to expect. And the first one, obviously, is that they are upgrading the artwork for this game, which is really nice, because the original Euro game, like many Euro games, doesn't really have the prettiest artwork, and getting a more modern touch, I think, really does add to the experience that the game offers. And the reason that these 3 tiles look like they have a very different style of artwork is because this is all still very much in the concept phase, and I think they're going to leave it up to the community to decide which direction they should go with the artwork. I personally think this one on the left looks a million times better than the other two. I don't know what everyone else thinks, but I really hope they go with that style. They're also improving the iconography, making some of the numbers and icons a lot bigger, and then having the artwork go right to the edge, giving it a really modern look. Not only that, but they're also making the tiles 30% bigger, which does take up more space, but it also makes them easier to handle and easier to see. The game's going to come with metal coins as well as an insert to store all the components and tiles, and the individual player boards are also going to be double layered recessed boards where you'll be able to put in your special board in the middle, and then there's going to be a clear transparent overlay that you can put over top of it, which has a hex pattern, which will allow players to easily slot in their different tiles as they're placing them throughout the game. So they are going a little bit of an extra mile here with some extra engineering of these recessed boards. Not only that, but there's also spaces to hold your dice and the other components that you'll have throughout the game. And there's going to be a ton of those double-sided duchy boards that go into your player boards, giving a lot of variety for players to choose from game to game. But they're going to be giving you a castle miniature in place of the castle tile that goes into the center of your board. And I really don't mind this upgrade. It's just one miniature that goes in the center of your board. It's nothing too crazy, and it does add a little bit of a fun centerpiece for each player to have on their board. The thing that I don't get is why they are including 16 of these miniatures in the box. But then they're using the exact same sculpt for all of them. I mean, it'd be really nice if there was at least 4 different castles so each player could have their own unique castle. I mean, I personally would only want 4 of these miniatures total, but if that's the case, and even if it wasn't, I still think that there should be at least 4 different castle sculpts, so that each player does have a different sculpt of their own. But we'll see what they unlock in the stretch goals. I don't really want to see any more added to this game, but if they could improve on the sculpts that they already have, I think that'd be a big improvement. And finally, this campaign will be including all the expansions as well, and each of the expansions will also have upgraded artwork and components just like the core game. A lot of this still is work in progress, so make sure to stay tuned to the campaign if you want to see exactly what each of these expansions will look like as its final product. And by final, I mean completely subject to change by the time it actually ships. But they are also offering a money-back guarantee. Of course, that likely doesn't include shipping, and they are including shipping rates. The gameplay all-in pledge that they have on the campaign now doesn't look like a terrible price for what you're getting, especially considering that this is one of the greatest games of all time. And I'm happy to say that I am interested in this one, and I don't see too many red flags yet, aside from those 16 castles, and I don't really mind if they do end up adding a bunch of non-essential content to this campaign. I'm not a huge fan of creating more junk and plastic for this world, but as long as it's optional and not paywalling you for the gameplay content, then I don't have any problem with providing more options to the backers to choose from. But I'm excited to learn more, and I hope this is a campaign that I can back and add to my collection, because this is a really beautiful version of a really excellent game.